Luke and his family were enjoying a quiet winter getaway, laughing as they played in the snow, just a dad, his wife, and their 2 kids soaking in a rare peaceful day. They were about to head back when little Lily reminded his dad about visiting the place where the famous writer Tiana lived. He'd promised his friends he'd bring pictures. Luke tried explaining that the main road was closed, promising they'd go next time, but Lily wasn't having it. Wanting to keep his son happy, Luke stepped out to find another way and eventually got directions from a local. Like any father who adored his family, he did his best to make every small wish come true. But the moment they took the alternate route, their car hit a hidden pit buried under the snow and got stuck. While Luke and his wife struggled to free the vehicle, Lily wandered out to play nearby, ignoring warnings to stay close. He spotted a deer and started tossing snow at it, even after Luke told him to stop, until the frightened animal ran off. Then a car approached in the distance, and Lily begged his father to ask for help. Luke refused. He almost had the vehicle free, but before he could stop him, Lily stepped directly in front of the oncoming car. The driver, distracted by his phone, looked up at the last second and slammed the brakes in panic. The driver slammed his brakes, but the icy road sent his car skidding sideways, narrowly avoiding a crash. By then, Luke had managed to free his own vehicle, but the moment the other driver stepped out, he exploded with anger, yelling at the family for the near accident. Luke apologized immediately. After all, it really had been Lily's fault, but inside, he was furious with his son. He told Lily to apologize too, but the boy shoved him, then even pushed his mother, throwing a full tantrum. Fed up and desperate, Luke locked Lily inside an empty cabin nearby and drove off just long enough to drop his wife and daughter at a restroom spot. He returned moments later to pick Lily up, but the cabin door stood wide open, and the boy was gone. Luke shouted for him, apologized, pleaded, but there was no sign of Lily anywhere. Panicked, he began driving in circles through the frozen woods, calling his wife to tell her what happened, and she broke down, urging him to find their son immediately. When night fell and Lily still hadn't been found, Luke's wife, Lee, rushed to the nearest police station to file a missing person report. Officer Kyun-jun questioned her about the exact location, but the map seemed to confuse him. Luke arrived soon after, demanding a search team, but June kept asking unrelated questions, stalling the process until Luke finally snapped. Only when a senior officer walked in did things move. He ordered an immediate search, and the whole team spread out across the snowy wilderness. A while later, fireworks suddenly exploded in the distance. Shocked, Lee asked a nearby officer why they were launching fireworks instead of looking for her child. The officer quietly explained that last year, a woman vanished in those same woods, and the fireworks had lured her out. They were hoping Lily might come back the same way. Even after hours of fireworks lighting up the sky, there was still no sign of Lily, so the officers urged Luke and Lee to return to their hotel, especially because their daughter was exhausted, but Lee refused to leave the search site. Luke finally convinced her to rest and dropped her off before returning to the search party, only to find some of the officers taking a short break. Furious, he snapped at them for wasting time while his son was missing, but they tried explaining they'd been searching non-stop for hours and needed a moment to recover. Luke refused to listen, insisting they were useless, and stormed off alone in his car. One officer whispered to Kyun-jun that if Luke wandered too far into the freezing wilderness, they might end up with 2 missing people instead of 1. As Luke pushed deeper into the icy forest, a distant echo made him call out desperately for his son. Panic tore through him. Lily wouldn't survive long in this brutal weather. Spotting a silhouette near a frozen river, Luke rushed in, only to discover it was just debris trapped in the current. The frigid water numbed his body instantly. Within seconds he collapsed, drifting unconscious before June arrived just in time to haul him out. Furious yet shaken, June scolded him for risking his own life and wasting precious time, but Luke rasped that Lily was only a child. He wouldn't last much longer out there. Seeing Luke trembling between fear and hypothermia softened June's anger, and he quietly urged him not to lose hope. Meanwhile at the hotel, Lee washed Lily's scarf and held it close, overwhelmed with worry. A woman approached, advising her to post Lily's photos online. Sometimes strangers can help faster than authorities, so Lee uploaded every picture she had. Luke returned soon after, and the two broke down together, terrified and exhausted. By morning, a massive rescue mission was organized under Officer Xiong Zhang, who warned they had only a few critical hours to find Lily before the cold claimed him. The child had no food, no gear, and no way to survive much longer. Lily's parents insisted on joining the search, and Zhang agreed. With the weather too severe for helicopters, the rescue team spread across the forest, calling Lily's name as they combed through the snow. Then they found a deep pit in the ground. One officer descended cautiously, and inside, he froze. There was a body wedged in the darkness below. Hearing that a body had been found sent Luke and Lee into a panic, but the officer soon clarified it was only a wolf, not their son. The search moved toward a nearby river, and the team began planning how to cover the area, but Luke insisted Lily might have tried heading toward the writer Tiana's place. The officers urged him to trust their plan, yet Luke, consumed with guilt and fear, charged into the freezing river alone. Several officers scrambled after him, and together they crossed to the other side. Memories of locking his son in that cabin tormented Luke. Every step reminded him how badly he wished he could undo that moment. He begged the officers to send a team toward Tiana's cabin, and Officer Zhang finally agreed. Later, Luke and Lee returned to the hotel where their daughter tearfully asked when Lily would come home. The woman who had posted Lily's pictures online suddenly noticed dozens of comments claiming sightings. Excited, Luke rushed the post to Officer Qian Jun, demanding they go immediately, but Jun explained the locations mentioned either didn't exist or were too far to be real. Before they could sort anything out, the woman secretly filmed them and posted the video online, causing the media to swarm the police station until Chief Bai stepped in to calm the chaos. Meanwhile, the stress crushed Lee, her health collapsed and Luke rushed her to the hospital, where guilt consumed her. She blamed herself for not stopping Luke earlier. Out in the field, multiple search teams kept hunting for Lily, but Qian Jun began suspecting Luke was hiding something. When officers questioned Lee, they asked whether Luke had ever been abusive. Haunted by past memories, his temper, his irresponsibility, she broke down, and when Luke came to check on her, she told him she couldn't stay with him anymore and left with their daughter. Then Luke received a message from an unknown number demanding money in exchange for Lily. Desperate, he grabbed the cash and met the kidnappers, who had stuffed a small child inside a sack. After taking the money, the men prepared to leave with both the cash and the child. Luke lunged at the kidnappers, fighting with everything he had until he tore the sack open and pulled the child out. Just then, Qian Jun and his team stormed in and arrested the men. The child wasn't Lily, it was a boy trafficked from another country, something Luke realized as soon as he heard his voice. But he saved him anyway, because somewhere out there, that boy's parents were suffering the same hell he was living through. June saw this and, for the first time, truly believed Luke was a good man. 2 full days had passed since Lily vanished. That night, when Luke and June returned to base, the rescue team had already begun packing up. A brutal storm was tearing through the mountains, and most officers felt the boy couldn't have survived this long. Luke dropped to his knees, begging them not to stop. Still, many refused, until Chief Bai quietly told them a story. Years ago, 3 children went missing in the same forest. For 3 days and nights, everyone searched non-stop. They eventually found one child alive, but when a massive storm hit, the search was halted. The next morning, the other 2 were found dead just a few meters away. If they had searched a little longer, those kids might still be alive. And the boy who survived? He was now standing among them. The story reignited hope, and the entire team joined in a chant, then marched back into the storm to find Lily. The weather was vicious, several searchers fell sick, but none stopped. When no clues surfaced, they paused, only for an officer to report that a man in a car accident near Lake Kim had just regained consciousness. He claimed he'd seen an unconscious child on the road and placed him inside his car. Immediately, a search order went out for the wrecked vehicle. Morning broke as the team moved toward the lake, but suddenly the mountains groaned and the snow gave way. A massive avalanche thundered down. Everyone ran, but it was hopeless. The wall of ice swallowed the entire team. Chief Bai tried to shield Luke, pushing him aside, but a falling boulder crushed him and snow buried them all. When the storm settled, rescuers dug out the survivors, many wounded, Chief Bai gone, and Luke nowhere to be found. Lee broke down in terror. Beneath the snow, Luke lay trapped, drifting through memories, the first storm he and Lee survived together, how their family grew, how stress turned him irritable and distant, how he worked himself to the bone trying to provide. A faint growl jolted him awake. A bear had wandered near, shaking the snow loose just enough for Luke to cry out for help. When he finally comes to, the harsh white glow of hospital lights blinds him for a second, and then he sees Sean sitting beside his bed, clutching his hand like she's afraid he'll vanish again. Confused and groggy, his mind scrambles for answers, until a single thought cuts through the noise like a knife. Sim. Panic surges through him. He pushes the blankets aside and staggers out of the room, ignoring Shan's desperate pleas to slow down. But the moment he steps into the hallway, the air shifts. Dozens of injured townspeople lie on stretchers or sit hunched in chairs, wrapped in bloody bandages, coughing, shivering, crying. Their eyes lift one by one, and every gaze narrows into hatred. These were all victims of the storm, the same storm they believed Luke had caused by insisting on driving out in it. The crowd begins whispering, then snarling, until the chief's son shoulders his way through them, jaw clenched, eyes burning. Without warning, he attacks Luke, screaming that Sim is dead and it's all Luke's fault. Shock turns into fury, and the two crash into each other, punching, clawing, slamming into gurneys as nurses scream for help. Officer Kyun-jun rushes in to break them apart, but he's thrown off and ends up hitting the floor, blood streaking down his temple. The chaos finally snaps something inside Luke. Overwhelmed by guilt, grief, and the crushing weight of everyone's blame, he grabs a scalpel from a fallen tray and turns it on himself, convinced he deserves every bit of pain. People shout, some freeze, some scream, and for a moment, he truly considers ending everything. But then he stops, breathing hard, trembling, and demands, no, orders, to be taken to the police director. The officers, unsure whether he's dangerous or broken, finally escort him down the hallway. When he reaches the director, Luke looks him dead in the eyes and says that if Sim wasn't in that car, then the director will carry the responsibility for his son's death, and Luke will make sure he pays for it. The director stares at him, stunned, then tells him he sounds completely insane. Even after everyone calls him reckless and unhinged, the search team reluctantly agrees to give Luke one final shot at finding Sim, and they pack up for another impossible rescue. Kyun-jun walks beside him in silence for a moment before grabbing his arm and declaring he's not letting Luke face the mountains alone again. As they prepare to leave, Sean appears in the doorway, her face pale from sleepless nights, gripping Luke's coat as if letting go would shatter her. She whispers for him to return alive, and to bring their son home, no matter what. With her voice echoing in his head, the team trudges into the storm-choked wilderness. Their search dog suddenly picks up a scent and darts downhill, barking wildly. Everyone runs after it through the whipping snow until they reach a wide, silent lake coated in a thin, treacherous sheet of ice that looks ready to break under a single breath. They barely step onto the surface when the ice groans like an injured animal. Without warning, Kyun-jun's foot slips through, the ground shatters beneath him, and he plunges waist-deep into the black freezing water, screaming as the current drags at his legs. Officers scramble onto their bellies, clawing at his arms, fighting to pull him back before the ice around him collapses completely. Seeing the chaos, Luke realizes that if he hesitates even a second, Sim will be lost forever. He ties the rope around his waist with shaking hands, nods once to the team, and begins crawling alone toward the half-buried car visible under frost and snow at the lake center. Every shift of his weight sends long cracks racing across the ice like spiderwebs. The cold bites through his clothes, stinging every nerve, but he keeps going. When he reaches the window and wipes away the frost with trembling fingers, his chest tightens. Inside, slumped against the seat, is Sim, limp, pale, and unconscious. Panic and hope collide inside him. He smashes the window with his arm until the glass splinters around his elbow, shards cutting into his skin, but he doesn't feel the pain. As he stretches inside, trying to pull his son out, the entire lake gives a deep, thunder-like groan. Fractures race beneath him, circling the car. Before he can react, the ice gives way with a violent snap, the surface collapses, and the car drops straight into the freezing, black water, dragging Luke and everything around him into the abyss. Luke somehow manages to yank Sim free from the sinking car, but the moment the boy slips out of his arms, his unconscious body begins drifting downward as if the lake itself is trying to claim him. Panic flashes across Luke's face. There is no time to think, no time to breathe. He grabs the knife strapped to his belt and slashes through the rope tied around his waist, freeing himself from the team holding him back on the ice above. The cut is clean, and the rope snaps upward, but Luke is already diving deeper, kicking through the freezing black water with burning lungs as he fights to keep Sim from sinking into the abyss. Up on the frozen lake, the officers watch the rope recoil and immediately understand the horror of what's happening. They drop to their knees and begin smashing the ice with everything they have: rifle butts, boots, metal bars, each strike sending painful tremors through their arms. The ice here is thick, ancient, and unyielding, and every second that passes feels like a lifetime slipping away beneath their feet. Someone screams for backup. Someone else prays. In the water below, Luke pushes Sim upward every time the boy starts to slip from his hands, but he can feel himself getting weaker, sinking deeper with each desperate kick. Minutes later, the rescue team arrives with industrial drills, and the once silent mountains echo with the violent roar of machinery tearing through ice. Steam rises as the drills melt and grind their way down, and finally, after what feels like an eternity, a jagged opening bursts through. Divers plunge into the black hole without hesitation, disappearing into the freezing darkness to search for the two lost figures. When they finally resurface, their hands are trembling as they lift a small, pale body out of the water. Sim. The officers gather around him instantly, shouting his name, checking his pulse, trying to breathe life back into him. But there is only one child in their hands. The divers look up with defeated eyes and explain what they found below. Luke had been sinking fast, dragged downward by the weight of both their bodies. Realizing he could no longer swim upward with Sim in his arms, he made the choice no parent should ever have to make. He pushed his son toward the surface with every last ounce of strength left in his body, sacrificing his own survival in the process. Sim broke through the depths and reached the rescuers because Luke allowed himself to fall into the cold, silent dark. In the final, shattering moments of the story, Luke makes a choice that no parent should ever have to face, yet one he accepts with a heartbreaking calm, a calm born not from peace, but from guilt that has hollowed him out for 2 relentless days and nights. As the ice cracks beneath them and the lake swallows the wrecked car, Luke clings to Sim with trembling, frozen arms, feeling the boy's faint breath against his chest like the last flicker of hope he has left in this world. He remembers every mistake he made, the anger he couldn't control, the night he locked his son inside that lonely room, the fear on Sim's tiny face that he never apologized for, and each memory feels like another weight dragging him deeper underwater. He sees the rescue team scrambling above the ice, their silhouettes distorted by the shifting surface, and he knows too many people have already been hurt searching for his child. Injured officers, lost lives, a community pushed to its limit, all because he failed the one person who depended on him the most. So when Sim slips from his grasp and begins sinking into the black water, Luke doesn't hesitate. He slices through his own safety rope, freeing himself from the only thing keeping him alive, and launches his son upward with every last ounce of strength. The cold crushes him instantly, numbing his limbs, slowing his heartbeat, but he doesn't fight it. He lets the water take him, watching through blurry eyes as Sim's small body rises toward the circle of light above. By the time the rescue team carves through the ice and pulls Sim out, Luke is already gone, swallowed by the silent depths like he was never there at all. His final act isn't just bravery, it's repentance, a desperate attempt to rewrite all the moments he wishes he could undo. And so Polar Rescue ends not with triumph but with a sobering truth. Sometimes the greatest love is the sacrifice no one sees, the heroism that comes too late for forgiveness but just in time to save a life. Tell us in the comments how this powerful ending moved you, and stay tuned, many more unforgettable stories are on the way. This is how our story ends here.